it's been the dopest, the wildest dream just because like I never thought like, and that's the thing, right? We were saying earlier, like we just haven't seen us on TV.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. My name is Talal, and you are listening to the Popcorn and Soda Podcast, the show where we discuss all things movies, pop culture, and so much more. I want to thank each and every one of you for making me a small part of your day. On today's show, we are joined by a very talented guest. She is one of Canada's finest actresses. You can see her as one half of the iconic Bobbsey Twins on the CW's modern day adaptation, Nancy Drew. On the show today, the very talented Aadila Dosani. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, thank you so much for coming to hang out on the show today. Before we
No, man.
begin, hey, how have you been over this last year? We're living in such a
Dude,
crazy world. How are you hanging in there?
so crazy. Like I don't know. Some days I'm amazing, and then some days I'm like, what the F is going on? And then some days I'm like, can I like crack open my box of wine at 8 a.m.? I don't know.
Uh,
Which,
Tell me about it. And it's crazy because like we're a year in now, I would say, and hopefully by the end of this year, things may start to get better. But it's still
yeah,
kind of like, hey, we still all got to wear our masks and keep our
right?
distance, and things are still open at a very limited capacity. Being an actress yourself, how's this last year impacted you the most?
Holy, I mean, it's been quite a shift, I've got to say, like from like, that daily the actor like the daily hustle all of us
Right.
actors go through to like where we are now. But I don't know, like I think it's great. Like it's good because honestly, I have to like just show gratitude. I'm grateful. I'm healthy. I'm working.
Yeah.
Like I cannot complain. Obviously, like we do complain all the time, which whatever, it's fine. It's human nature, right?
Such is life, right? It is
Such
what
is
it is.
life. But it's been good. It's been good. Like I mean, career-wise, it's been pretty wonderful in terms of like there have been so many more opportunities for us Canadians up here because the border's been closed.
Yeah.
So logistically speaking, in that sense, it's been dope. And then honestly, I just feel like the pandemic's put so many things into perspective, you
Oh,
know? Like
absolutely.
what's really important. None of this shit is important. Like it's important, but like in the grand scheme of
Yeah,
things.
right. Like you have your health, your family, and
Exactly.
like I'm looking at my closet right now. I'm like, I haven't worn half those clothes over a year, and I'm like a
No.
fashion guy. So I'm like, dude, looking back at it, was that stuff really even that important in hindsight, right? It just really
It's
puts things
true.
in perspective.
It does. It's like it was that necessary. And it kind of just like reels you back to really take a step back and be like, do I need this excess that like we all live in? Or I should say, speak for myself and say that I thought I needed to live in which I don't, and it
Yeah.
it kind of makes you check yourself in like a massive way. And I feel like that's what the pandemic's been for me. I've done a lot of like self-work.
Self-reflection and all of that.
Yeah. But then also a lot of like sitting around and being like, you know what, it's okay to be this and
Yeah.
I can live in this jazz if I want. So it's been definitely reflective for sure. But man, perspective, right? Family comes first. This is it. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, what have I been hustling for if like you don't have your family to share it with?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And
Yeah.
especially being South Asian and how
Yeah.
our families are so like intertwined and it's such a big part of our culture and just our everyday lives. It
Yeah.
really makes you appreciate the little things more than, we probably should have been even before, right?
It's so true. And especially, right, like, growing up South Asian, we grew up within a community. It's not just your
Yeah.
household, but your
Mhm.
household is your like
It's like your
extended
universe.
family.
It's kind of like it's an extended version of you, right? In so many ways. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's who's raised you. It's the community that brings you up. And I've realized I'm like, man, I thought I'd be okay. Like I like to be like, I love to be on my own and do things on my own, but I didn't realize how much that was so instilled in me
Yeah.
innately, where I'm like, shoot, like that's so much a part of me that I miss because like we are always together through thick and thin, through the
Mhm.
good times, the bad, and not having like our people, my family around, it's really been like, shit, this is who I am. Now I'm finally seeing me for me. So
No, right
yeah.
on. And it just that's just why I'm so fascinated by your story and your journey so far in your acting career is we're naturally drawn to people that have similar stories as us.
Yeah.
We're both South Asian, we're both Canadians, both
Yeah.
love the creative arts. We both went to University of Toronto.
Oh, shut the front door for real?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's
I
like when I saw
bet.
that, I'm like, whoa, no way. This is
Yeah.
like boom, everything. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, and well, it's not really even that funny. It's when you see like think about acting or movies or television, you don't really see people that have our skin color, that have
Yeah.
our types of names,
No.
that even look like us, right? So, what I'm fascinated to know is where does this all begin for you? What were your early influences and what made you want to be an actress?
Honestly, I feel like, I mean, I guess I was like plopped into it with my parents. So I grew up playing sports.
Yeah.
But I gotta preface it with being like, I can only play dry land sports. And so when I was younger, like my parents had put me into like skating and swimming, and
Right.
I failed like
Well, hey,
miserably.
you may be the only brown person that I know that can actually swim or skate
No,
proficiently,
I
maybe.
can't.
So,
It was
oh,
it
not
was
even up.
so bad
We'll
that
take
like my parents had to pluck me out of those extracurricular activities because I was that kid that like couldn't do it, and I feel like I made them look bad. And then they put me into community theater, and I guess that's kind of how things started to propel because I finally found myself. But I swear they were buying like cupcakes every weekend so that like they could still be friends with the other parents, and so I wouldn't look bad. At least I'd be the girl with the treats because you
Yep,
know
yep.
how brown parents go. They'll like
Oof.
feed you, they'll
Of
feed into
course.
your heart, and then people will love you. But it was not my athletic skill, so
It's all good. Each to their own, right? That's just
yeah,
what it
man.
is.
Oh, but that's yeah, that's basically it, and that's kind of how it happened. I got into community theater in Calgary, and from there I kind of did it in school, and I realized I loved it. Like I would put on shows for my parents at the top of the railing and be like, "No, you're shining like a flashlight on me. I'm the star. I found my place," which I don't know if that's good or bad. They checked me all the time, so I mean, at least I stayed grounded, but
Well, that's important, right?
it's important. Yeah, so,
So
you
did
know,
you get the standard, and it sounds like you may not have, but who
yeah.
knows? Did you get the standard, hey, you got to be either a lawyer, doctor, engineer, or an accountant growing up?
You know what? I'm so lucky that I didn't. Like, and I feel like I'm like one of the rare ones
Oh,
in that
absolutely. Yeah.
sense.
Jeez.
Like my parents have supported me through thick and thin with this, but I did get okay. So it was like, of course you can be an actor, of course you can, but what are you going to do on the side just in case? So I
Oh,
wasn't like pushed in per se directly into like another field, but it was like, what
another
else
way of
can you do
segueing
just
it,
in
kind of
case?
like, hey, it's
Yeah, right? Where you're like, how about take this as your other major just in case?
yeah, who knows if maybe, come tomorrow you wake up and you don't want to be an actress anymore, at
Yeah.
least you have a backup, right?
At least I have a backup, but it's like their way of thinking for sure, right?
Yeah,
Where
and it's just
yeah.
like I think like an immigrant parent's way of thinking, especially when our families from back home, whether it's like Pakistan or India
Yeah.
or Bangladesh, when they come here, for the most part, for the people that I know, it's either one of those fields that I just mentioned, and it's funny because I have brothers that are in literally each field of a doctor, an accountant, a
That's why I was
CPA.
gonna ask. And it's because like yeah, my mom's an accountant, obviously. So it's like,
Oh, I
yeah,
know naturally your parents would be like, all right, hey, this is a great field. You can just support
totally.
yourself, go
It's
down this path. And
stable. There's healthcare, which I feel like is like the big one. My poor sister, my parents are like, no. I think she got the brunt of it because
oh,
I left home real quick. So now
gotcha, of
she gets the like, the brown parenting where they're like, no, but
course.
you need to find a job with healthcare and pension. And she's like, well, Adila doesn't have any of that. And they're like, it doesn't matter. You need it.
There's like the one in each family that's kind of like, all right, fine, we'll let him or her kind of do that thing. But for the
Totally.
rest of you, you're all F. You better do this, you better do
Oh,
that. And
yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, it's not my fault you're younger and you have to stay home longer, but
such is life, right? It
such
is
is
what it
life.
is, right? And it's
Totally.
so interesting because I feel like as you mentioned about the whole having a backup, and that's kind of like my parents as well. And I get it. As older I in the second half of my 20s, I'm starting to understand their perspective and how
Yeah.
they immigrated to Canada. But at the same time, when you're really into like creative arts, whether it's acting, whether it's hosting, whether it's being an artist of some sort,
Yeah.
it's really hard to want to do something else when other people are maybe either trying to force you or trying to get you into that, because you will never be happy doing something else if it's not what you really want to do.
No, it's so true. It's so true. And I feel like at the end of the day, our parents see that, they just don't know how to communicate about it
Yeah, and you
because
know
they
what?
were
Yeah,
never.
it's one of those things where I feel like eventually when you're down that path and you it's easy to say I want to be an actress or I want to be a host, but you still have to bust your ass harder than the next person just because
Yeah,
of again, your ethnicity, your name, your
yeah,
skin color. Once
yeah,
they start seeing the little successes and how that starts to snowball, I think they start to accept it a
totally.
bit more. That's just how
Yeah.
I find it. Yeah.
They totally jump on board. And I feel like it's harder for us too, because like we have to break so many more barriers in order
Oof,
to like be successful. And there is no trajectory in the arts, right?
there
And
isn't.
then as a parent, that's the tough part because in the other fields, there's all like there's a clear trajectory.
Yeah,
Whereas for
absolutely.
us, it's like it'll happen 20 years ago or in 20 years, yesterday or tomorrow, right? You just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
transitioning over to one of your amazing successes, Nancy Drew, like this is
yeah,
a big deal and it's such an iconic IP. And I remember reading this in elementary school when like the teacher read the book to the entire class. And
yeah,
this isn't like your mom and dad's Nancy Drew. This is a very modern day take on it that
yeah,
represents what society looks like today. And the
mm,
Dobbsey twins, that's such another big iconic IP on top of that.
yeah.
How did you get involved with this role, and what was the audition process like, and how excited are you just to have a chance to continue to play this amazing role?
Oh man, I gotta say, like, first and foremost, I'm stoked. Like, it's been the dopest, the wildest dream just because like I never thought like, and that's the thing, right? We were saying earlier, like we just haven't seen us on TV as
Yeah.
much or on film or on the screen. And then to be able to play and take a like completely different take and represent a character that's
Mhm.
traditionally a, like two sets of Caucasian affluent
Yeah.
kids, right? Is insane. And it's been pretty great, especially I mean, like we said, for representation itself, but in this show in particular, like so Praneet and I, who plays Gail, my twin,
Yep.
we were able to be plopped into the world without any like explanation or rhyme or reason. And I find in so many shows right now, like if you aren't authentically representing, a fictional character in literature, there's always a reason as to why, like they have to create a narrative around it to explain why
Yeah.
you're a different color. Whereas in this show, like it just is what it is. We're
Yeah.
just the Bobbsey twins and there was no story behind it. And I feel like that's been the hugest win because it should be that's how you normalize it
Oh, absolutely. It's like
in that
it's no
sense.
like race bending or anything like that. It's just, hey, we have these two South Asian people that are
Yeah.
literally who these characters are, and that's just the DNA of it. Did you shoot the show during COVID?
Yeah.
What was that
Yeah.
like?
It was wild. So yeah, we shot, so like I know you had asked before the whole audition process and stuff. We
Mhm.
actually So the audition happened basically July 2020 once things in Canada started to open up a bit,
Right.
and productions went back. And then we didn't find out till several weeks later. And then we didn't go to camera until the end of September once all of the CBS safety and CW safety protocols were out.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it's wild. Like, so we basically test 3 times a week. If we're doing intimacy stuff, we test COVID test every day. We
Wow.
basically have to do check-ins. We do like our daily temperature check-ins. We check in with COVID safety officers. The protocols on set are wild. Like you're
I bet.
masked all the time. You're
Do you have that little
always making
shield on your
sure.
face as well, or
Yeah, like you can't you so basically the actors wear masks, but then everyone else who's like around us, so like, hair and makeup, whoever has direct contact definitely has to wear like protective eyewear. They have their PPC gear.
yeah, I bet.
Um and like it's very diligent. Like we have COVID safety officers on set watching us at all times, just making sure that everyone is following precautions, your social distancing, like even in cast tents, we like there's now different tents, like, like back in the day, like everyone just like rams in the green
Yeah.
room or the holding room and you just jam out, but
Just yeah.
everything, right? Everything's so spaced out. Like you have to go outside to eat just to make sure that there's
You're
no, you
keeping
know
your
what I mean?
distance. No one's getting close enough to each other to like spread each other's like
Exactly.
germs or air
So
particles and whatnot.
yeah, like CBS has kept us so safe. You feel so safe working, which has been really great. But I think that's why things have been kind of like start and go and push back just to make sure all of those things were in place, and that
Mhm.
rollout was there. But it's been great. Like they've really taken care of us on the show in terms of that safety aspect.
Right,
And
right. Because like you kind of have to, right? Because it's like if one person gets sick, you gotta shut
yeah,
everyone down, everything down, the entire
yeah,
production. Like people rely on their like their salary and whatnot
yeah,
for these kind of things. Do you
yeah.
think that the future of TV or film is will it ever return to what the past was, or is it going to be this new normal, and we're just going to have to kind of continue through that? Because you've done both.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I feel like it'll go back, but not anytime soon.
Hmm.
I feel like it'll go back in a couple years, but I feel like people are going to be really, really aware and sensitive and take those be precautious and take those safety measures.
Yeah,
I mean, I hope it does, mainly like right as an actor or like as you as an artist, like we love that personal connection
I
and
know,
we
eh? Like
like
doing this in person would probably be like a billion times
yeah,
better than like this is awesome, but at the same time, when
yeah,
you're with someone and you feed off each other's energy, it's you
yeah,
can't duplicate that, right? Like,
you cannot duplicate that. And so I'm hoping it does. I don't know. I don't see it in the foreseeable future, that's for
yeah,
sure.
no, absolutely,
Like,
I agree with that 100%. And like it's just one of those things. Do you, as a creative artist, when you're on set and you
yeah,
have all these restrictions and like it is what it is, right? That's just
yeah.
what we all have to adapt to. Is it difficult to be your true self and fully let out all your creative juices, or are you still kind of in the back of your mind a little paranoid about, oh, this person's too close,
Yeah.
that person's too close? How does that work?
I think initially I was, because like you just didn't know how to tread the line. Like I
I
had
know,
no
right?
idea. And then I think as like a new cast member this season coming on too, you also don't know like what other people's boundaries
Yeah,
are,
what
stuff
the
like
norms
that.
are already on set and whatnot.
Right. And then it's like as a South Asian person, you know this, we get paranoid AF. Like it's
Oh,
like
we're
instilled in us.
it's like already, it's like, yo,
It's
like you're
already
when you're brown and you're like here I am. Am I like all these people and like whatever? And like it's already like a red flag that I'm here. And now on
yeah,
top of that, it's like, what do
it's
I
like,
do?
what do I do? Totally. So initially it was kind of just like, how do I figure
How do
out
you
these
tread this? How do
relationships?
you
How do I
kind
tread
of
this?
navigate through all this?
Yeah, but now I think it's totally fine, not at all, and I think it's because I also had to trust the fact that the network itself was keeping us safe, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? And you get to, like, learn people's boundaries once you're there, thank
Yeah, I
God, like,
bet.
at least, like, we're still in the same room where you can, like, read body language and stuff, but I think now it's fine, and we're all getting tested, so we know that we're okay.
Yeah, and I think it's like that little icebreaker at the very start where
Yeah,
once you kind of break through like, everyone's tension and nervous energy, it kind of
yeah,
just you open up to it and you're like, all right, we're all being safe, and pretty much that's just how it
exactly.
rolls, right?
Being responsible outside. And that's the other thing, right? Is like it's sometimes it feels like it's even tougher because you're kind of like self-isolating ish on your own because I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't want to risk that, like we were saying, somehow. And I
Being
know
that
this
one
is like,
person that just fucks up the entire set, right?
dude, and then what? Like you're the reason, like I am so psycho. Like I'm like, I refuse to be the reason this show shuts down. So I'm
No,
like, I
it's
don't really
fair.
see anyone.
No, I totally get it. I'm kind of like that too, where it's like,
Yeah.
listen, like I live being brown. You have a big family, so it's like I'm with
Yeah.
like five other people in my house right now, and it's like even when I'm out, I don't want to be the reason why someone at my house gets sick or
That's
anything
it.
like that, right? It's
Exactly.
whack.
It's
You,
so whack, and even going back to that, I'm like, I live on my own, but it's like but then I miss that family element. I'm like, "Man, I haven't seen my family, my parents, you can't even
yeah,
go back home, they're all older,"
yeah,
so
right. No, I
uh,
totally get it. Yeah, it's just one of those things where yeah, it's just the way life's gonna be for the next like foreseeable future. I don't even know what's really
I
gonna
don't
happen.
know. I think once these vaccinations roll out and we kinda see how they actually take effect, because I
Right.
feel like right now we have yeah, they're there, but,
We
like, we
have an
have no
idea what it may be, but until we actually see it in action and see it in person as to like, hey, our number is really going down, I guess then we may loosen up a
exactly.
little and see what's up.
and then we normalize it a little bit, like the flu or whatever, but we still don't know. Like nobody knows.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Super interesting you brought up how we just don't see many of us in TV or movies. And it's funny because the only thing I would usually see when I think of a brown person is like a terrorist or the taxi driver or some
yeah,
oppressed female. And I feel
yeah,
like the last like 5 years we're starting to maybe trend in another direction,
yeah,
especially with like Riz Ahmed, Camille Angiani,
yes,
yourself. Um,
yeah,
just being in the industry for close to almost a decade for you, right? At this
yeah,
point,
more than, yeah.
even more than what have you seen that has in terms of representation and
Mhm.
inclusion for South Asians, how far have you come and how much more work do you think is still left to be done?
Dang, man. I think there's so much more work still left to be done. Honestly, I think we're finally starting to lay the foundation and groundwork
Yeah.
in for us, like for us as South Asians specifically. Because I feel like we kind of get lost in the mix a little bit. Like our stories get lost,
Mhm.
our voices get lost, and not for any like wrong or malicious reason. Like there's so many other things happening right now. You know what I mean, with all the
Yeah, yeah.
movements and stuff that are fucking, pardon my language, I'm such a potty mouth,
It's all good. It's all good.
that are way more prevalent and important. But I feel like, I feel like there's like always I find like, and this is my personal opinion, I don't know, maybe if I should share it or not, but I find that
Let's hear
like,
it.
I'll be so candid that there's like a certain few people who are kind of like who have been the poster children for South Asian
Yeah.
people, and then Hollywood or like North American film and TV always refer to them as being like, no, we're representing you guys. Like, see, we have this person and this person. And you're like, you can't
I
just
hear
take
you.
two or three, do you hear me? Like two or three
Oh,
token
absolutely.
people to be like, no, man, that's not representing us. Like, you're not even like taking into account who we are, like traditionally, culturally, what our DNA is. And so, but I think the last few years have definitely started to lay that foundation for us. And we have a lot more work to do because I think our culture and who we are have a lot more stories to tell, especially as like first generation South
Yeah.
Asian kids in North America. And I feel like because of how we've been raised with our, like we were saying before, like in a community with our values, our traditions, like they are very different from like
Your
other backgrounds.
standard, yeah, North American traditional like community, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
those stories haven't been touched on or told, especially from our voices, because they've been told from like someone like you know what I mean? Like maybe our
Yeah.
parents' voice, like an immigrant's voice, but not ours. And like I feel like we're really battling that tradition. Like, how do we keep that alive with our parents? Because it's so prevalent with them, with
Hmm.
like creating our own. And they're very specific what we go through and different. And that hasn't been touched on. And so I'm hoping this lays the foundation for like our stories, first generationally to be told too, because we still have a lot of that tradition in us,
Yeah.
but we're also Canadian.
Of course. Yeah. Like
So
for us, we're probably we love our heritage, our culture, and we
exactly.
wave the flag. But at the same time, we're probably more Canadian than we are from our own native country, right? At
That's
this point,
exactly it. So
this
it's you get that identity crisis, right? That
oh
sometimes happens where I'm like, I don't know. And then you get the thing which I've heard, which it's getting better now, I think, in the last few years. And like, I don't know if the same experience is for you, but it's like I always get told, right? Because I don't live and sit in like that traditional realm really as myself. I feel like I'm more of a modern, you know what I mean,
yeah,
South
yeah, no, for
Asian in
sure.
that
Yeah,
way.
I get you.
Like you're not brown enough, or you're not, you know what I
Like,
mean?
yeah, do you really represent what
Do
it's
you
really
really
like to be
represent?
brown and just generally,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
So
just
it's
one of those things.
interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and as you mentioned, I think it's so important that us being most we are pretty much the first generation in our
Yeah.
households, or just even generally, it's important for us to tell our stories from our perspective rather than, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, from our parents' point of view. We
Yeah.
went to school here, we went to elementary here, high school. So the way we perceive things aren't necessarily the exact same way our parents probably did or would.
Exactly.
Like they've had their own issues of as well. I fully understand and respect that, but
Yeah.
I think it's time for, and we're, as you mentioned, like the first generation to start planting our seeds and our own building blocks of getting these stories out there and really sharing what it's like to be a South Asian living in North America.
Exactly. And how we identify, right? Like it's so I'm really freaking hoping that like, these last few years paves the way for us to kind of be more represented on screen. Because you're right, like, you
Yeah.
don't see many of us. It's funny, it goes either and I hate it. I hate that, like, this is where we've come to, but it's so specific in, like, how it goes, right? So
Yeah. I'm really curious about your opinion on this thought that I have and this logic that I've kind of been thinking about a lot myself over the last couple of years. And maybe you have another perspective altogether, especially as someone who's worked in the film and TV industry as yourself. Do you find that the biggest critic that we have in this industry is sometimes South Asians themselves,
yep.
where it's like, hey, we're all trying to support each other, like you and I, but the
Yeah.
majority of South Asians, they want to tear you down. They're, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be following X, Y, and Z. Like you're do you ever find that, or am I just crazy the way I'm thinking?
No, no, you were not crazy at all. It's wild, and I don't get it.
There's two of us.
I don't get it. I don't get where it comes from. And sometimes I think I'm like, okay, Dila, take yourself outside of, you know what I mean? Like, check yourself, take yourself outside of the box.
Yeah,
And I really don't know if it comes like from like any sort of malicious intent as it does,
comes from
but
somewhere,
then maybe
whether
it does.
malicious or
Like,
not, but who knows,
malicious or
right?
not, it's yeah, it's wild. I don't get it. And I wonder if it's because our parents had to come here and really fend for themselves and fight for themselves and carve out a place for themselves. Cause I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of racism they've had to endure.
Oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Or you're starting fresh into a new culture, a new community when you're
yeah,
already in the middle of your life, or you're in your 30s or 40s and bringing over your family then
yeah,
versus someone who was born and raised here or even came at a very young age.
yeah.
It's tough, and that's just
It's
the one
tough.
thing that just kind of sucks about being South Asian in this community, because
Yeah,
I feel like the people within support each other and we want all of us to do well, but at the same
yeah.
time the larger community, it's kind of like almost taboo if you want to do something in the creative arts.
Totally. It's so taboo. And it's like, I don't know if it's like a level of like competition, but not even, maybe that's not the right word, but like,
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
get your perspective on it as
You
well,
get,
and I'm
yeah,
glad that someone sees it from my perspective as well, because
dude, I see it.
it's like I feel like there's a lot of mental health issues that South
Yeah.
Asians go through, and it's not really brought upon our culture to like be open about talking about your feelings and whatnot. And
No.
there's a lot of people that are either in jobs or in careers that they're not happy with or they're
Yeah.
forced upon. And then when they kind of see someone else who's kind of following their own path or wants to do what they do, I
Yeah.
find that you get in the defensive really quick, and it's like, hey, instead of supporting each other, it's like you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing what, your parents wanted you to do. And I get
Totally.
their perspective, I do, but at the same point, it's like if you really want to pave the way for future generations of South Asians in North
Yeah.
America, we have to take it upon ourselves to support each other, right?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And it's like exactly, I feel like you totally touched on it where it's like they weren't they were not in a place where they were supported enough to feel like they could truly voice what they wanted to do and like be courageous enough
Yeah.
to actually follow their heart and things. And then, you know what I mean, that gets suppressed, and I feel like it gets deflected on us because we did put our foot down. And listen, it ain't no easy feat. Like,
Oh,
I'm one
phew.
story where I was really freaking lucky, but like, like what you've said with like
For the majority of
for the
people, it's
majority.
the amount of shit and like the
Yeah.
fighting, the arguing, and it's like, wait, is this really what you want to do? What are you
Yeah.
doing? It's tough, like the
It's
mental stress
tough.
and everything. It's not
Yeah.
easy.
I mean, and I know I have friends who've like haven't spoken to their family because they've chosen to be in the arts, and like I can't even imagine what that's like. And I feel like it's because we were courageous enough to be like, no, I'm following my heart. I'm carving my own way. This is what I want to do and how I want to make a difference. And maybe, and I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's like because they weren't able to find that courage within themselves to be like, no, F that. I'm gonna go my own way. And then it gets like deflected onto the rest of us. But you know
Yeah.
what's funny is I also find within film and TV, and I'm just gonna be so candid, is it's interesting because there aren't as many of us on screen. I also find within the film and TV community that there's competition within us South Asians too, which I
Yeah.
find
I've
wild
heard that a lot.
AF. Like it's like
Trust me,
I
it's
don't.
super prevalent in the Toronto industry. I can tell you, just once
Oh,
you're in, they're kind of like, I'm the designated brown guy or the brown girl. I don't
that
want this guy
that
coming in and taking my role or my
that
spot.
yeah,
Like,
I feel that all the time,
I
and I'm like,
bet.
oh man, I'm sorry. And then you get so apologetic. I don't know if you're the same way, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't even like. I don't
Yeah,
like
that's
know
not
how
the
to deal
perspective
with
I was
that.
coming in with. It's not, I didn't mean to like, step on your
No.
feet if that's how you feel, right?
But
It's
I
whack.
get it. It's like that in Vancouver too, and in my mind, I'm like, "Yeah, girl, you freaking got that series lead, you got that regular, you're paving the way for me,
Yeah, like a
to
win
do
for you
that."
is a win for all of us. So, like that's
Yeah,
how I see it, but that's
that's
not
how
really
I
how
see it.
everyone really sees it. It's like,
No, and you feel it, and I feel like that's another conversation in itself too, where I'm like, "How do you psychoanalyze that?" Because that's even wilder sometimes. Because there aren't even that many of us. Why can't we support each other? I have a girlfriend who just booked a dope series, and we talk about this all the time, and I'm like, Eliza, why can't like we just all of us be like us? Like we're
I
like,
know,
yeah,
eh?
bitch, like you won, I won, you won, dinner's on you. Like, it's
Yeah. But you know what?
it's
I think it's
weird.
important to have these talks, and I'm so happy
Yeah,
that I can have this talk openly about how
yeah,
it kind of really is. And I think if you don't have these talks, we're just going to continue to suppress the issue at
yeah.
the matter, and that's we need to start supporting each other and just need to wave each other's flag. A win for
I think
you
so
is a
too.
massive win for me, and vice
Yeah,
versa. And that's just how we have to kind of go through this.
we have to, especially if we want to see more of us on TV.
Oh,
And on
phew.
screen, like we got to. But again, right, it's like kind of what we talked about. It's that like you work so hard to choose this, and like you put so much in and take so much shit to be in this career path, that like the threat of it being taken away is really freaking real in that sense,
Yeah.
because of all of that familial stuff and cultural stuff we've had to deal with.
Yeah. So
So
hey, here's us hoping to the next generation, and even
yeah,
forget that.
man.
Let's just open to our generation to continue
Yeah,
doing what we're doing and
yeah,
just supporting each other. Hey, as we
yeah.
wrap up here with the amazing Adila Dosani, it is now time for a segment I like to call the final act.
Ooh,
Adila, I'm
okay.
gonna give you 60 seconds to answer 15 rapid fire questions about your likes, your dislikes. If you go over the time, it's all good, but I want to
Okay.
hear the first answer that comes to your mind. You up for it?
Okay. Okay, let's do it.
Movies or TV shows?
TV shows.
Theater or watch at home?
Theater.
Last movie you watched at a theater?
Uh, a Batman one? I
All
don't know.
right. Favorite movie?
Oh, okay, Bollywood. 1942 Love Story.
All right. Yeah, you just took my next question. Favorite Bollywood movie not named
But then
19.
also Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Salman, Shahrukh, or Amir? Favorite Khan?
Shah Rukh.
Hells yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Number one actor that inspires you?
Ooh, oh, Christopher Plummer.
Ever had a starstruck moment?
Yeah. Ryan, what's the other, not Reynolds, the other Ryan.
Gosling?
Gosling. Dude,
All
it was
right.
bad. I'll tell you about that later. Okay, 60.
All right. Current TV show you're watching?
Oh, the Bravo Housewives,
All
all of
right.
them.
We'll cut that one out.
Okay, cool.
Favorite Nancy Drew character, not yourself.
Ooh, oh, like all of them. Dude, the supernatural, like just like the ghosts.
All right. Well, we'll take it. Summer or fall? What do you prefer more?
Fall, sweater weather.
Favorite thing about growing up in Canada?
Four seasons.
Yeah. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Hell yes.
Okay, another
Sorry.
one we have to cut out.
Okay, okay.
Dream roll.
Dream roll.
Mhm.
Ooh, I don't, dang, just someone cuckoo bananas, man.
All right. And
Ooh,
last,
Detective Renee Montoya, maybe. I'm a
okay.
DC girl.
Oh, dude, how's yeah? I'm a DC guy as well. I
Are
love
you a
it, dude.
DC guy? Hell
DC all
yeah.
day, bro. That's it. You got
DC
Joker
all
right there. We
day.
got there
I,
all day,
yeah,
DC. Let's
all
let's
day.
do
I
it.
want to be. I want to be Detective Renee Montoya. Yeah.
Hey, lastly, describe your role on Nancy Drew in one word.
Oh, one word for
Yeah,
real,
I'm just giving
dude.
you one. That's it. Just one.
Okay. What's curious?
Curious. Bam. Hey, you knocked it out of the park. That was
Oh,
awesome. You went through all the questions. You didn't like give so BS political like correct
No,
answer. That's awesome,
no,
eh? Like, good
no
for you.
politically correct things here. No.
And that's what I love about you after our conversation today. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today, and
No,
thank you for your contributions and all your accomplishments. Like, I'm literally so proud of you, and as I mentioned, a win for you is a win for all of us, and I'm so excited to see what the next steps are for
Oh
you.
man, thank you so much. That means the world. And likewise, man, thank you for all your time and your contributions. You're giving us a platform and holding space for us to kind of speak our truth. And fuck, man, that's what we need right now. So, like,
Absolutely.
honestly, thank you for doing what you do and just giving us a voice.
Oh, I love it. There you
Yeah.
have it. Adila Dasani, thank you.
All right.